Hello and welcome. Today's video is going to be about changing out the cx20 main board. This guy right here. And the reason why is probably about 90% of us have crashed our quadcopters and the cx20 frame is getting a little bit more scarce. So I did order a QR350 frame a long time ago. I was supposed to make a video out of, but I never got around to it. But this video is not going to show that. I'm just going to basically show how to change the motherboard and stuff like that. Alright, so I ordered about 3 of these boards probably about a year ago, and I was supposed to make a video out of that as well to try to making more room in the cx20. So this little guy can replace everything the cx20 mainboard does, and that's what the video shall be about. So I'm just going to jump into it. This guy here, just to show a little bit of the things about it, it does have the BEC included. It has the buzzer on it, and it can control the LEDs underneath your original OEM cx20 ESCs. Now it says it has a loss finder, but I'm going to show around the end it's pretty cheesy. You actually have to be in distance to use it. And then it has the low voltage alarm, just like the cx20 does. Alright, so I'm just going to remove everything out of the cx20 to make it easier. I'm not going to install it into a frame. I'm just going to do it right on the table itself. Alright, so this is the cx20 in all its glory with all its pieces separated a little bit. It's good practice to, when you take it apart, just find a pill bottle or something and put all your screws away in it so you don't lose them by accident. And first thing too you want to get out of the way is for ESC3. And this is this guy here, motor 3. This guy has an extra wire, so if you count all the ESC wires, there's only 3 on this guy, 3 on this guy, 3 on this guy, and then there's 4 on this guy here. The 4th wire here is connected to a pad called PPM, and this is actually directly connected to your throttle, I believe it is. So what you'll want to do is just find some whiteout or some black tape or something or a marker and just mark this wire. This just reminds you that it's a special wire, so it can't take 5 volts and especially not 12 volts. So you got 4 ESCs. These guys here control the 4 motors. You got your brain of your cx20 here, which is called the APM, and this controls everything basically. You got the GPS, and you have the receiver that controls the motor throttle and stuff like that. Your LEDs down here, and then your USB connection here, and the power plug here. So, and what else did I forget here? Hidden away here, and the compass. All right, so I'm just going to remove all these wires here. All right, I have the ESCs disconnected, and now I'm just going to explain these just a little bit, and power board as well. So do you actually need this big board here to make your quadcopter work? And the simple answer is no, you do not. You can actually just simply replace this motherboard with wire about this gauge here. I just out of a computer, and I'll explain that a little bit. Alright, so the purpose of this board here is basically for the pico buzzer here, a voltage regulator, and this guy here that controls the lights for your ESCs. And it might actually control the pico buzzer as well. I never really looked that much into it. I'm pretty sure the traces go that way. So yeah, this guy here controls that and the lights for this PWM wire here or whatever. So you can actually replace this motherboard, as I said before, with some simple wire like this, an aftermarket buzzer here, and then this isn't really a BEC, but this is usually the size of them anyways. I believe this is a step up. But anyways, something about this size would replace the voltage regulator here, and then the speaker here, and the wires. So some people might cringe at that, but if you look at the size of the ESC wires here, this is actually the gauge of the wire here. That's how small it is. That's the 12-volt power wire. And also on the pad here, if you actually look how small that pad is. So it's basically this whole size of this board is more to get rid of the heat, but still the flaw would be there, or the size of this wire here. So you can get away using wire this size and just get rid of this main board altogether and just use wires and that pico buzzer I showed you and a voltage regulator or a BEC. All right. All right, the ESCs. So the reason why you don't really need this motherboard or this main board, because it doesn't really control the ESCs. All it's doing is delivering 12 volts to this guy here, the positive, and then here's your negative for your 12 volts. And every ESC will have a white wire as well. I believe they all do. And the white wire is for the LEDs. So just keep that in mind. The one on the far right is your positive 12. The one on this side is your negative 12. And this guy here is your LED 5 volt wire. And in each ESC will have 2 wires like this. The cx20 actually comes with 3 with a red one, but it's not really connected to anything, so you can just remove it. So the white guy here is your PWM wire, and this guy here is your ground. So to show an example of this, I'm just going to move this guy out of the way to explain this guy here, and maybe it'll make some sense to you. So the reason why you don't need this main board. It's handy if you want to place your APM on top of it, but let's say you want to make a really small quad or a custom quad, you don't even need the main board. You can just use wires. And then you might be thinking about the low voltage and stuff like that, but that's the point of this buzzers here, is these guys here can get plugged in like that. And then if you get low voltage on this battery, this guy will start beeping really loud. So this gets rid of the buzzer here. All right, to show you about the ESC and how it works quickly. And it's not going to be like totally technical. I'm just going to show you the basics or basic understanding of it at least, so you get an idea about it. So you can totally understand why you don't need this board and you can just use wires. All right, so here's the really basic connections to make an ESC work. So what you need is to power the receiver with 5 volts. I'm just going to be using an Arduino for my 5 volts. I did manage to find a 12 volt to 5 volt regulator. But anyways, I'm just going to be connecting it directly. So usually you would want to solder on an end or something to your wires here. So the white one here is your LED wire. This guy here is your servo wire, and you'll want to connect it to T on your transmitter. Or for this example, that's what I'm going to be doing. Like that. So the red guy here is your 12 volt wire. And this guy gets plugged into here. Like that. And then you can plug in the receiver to give it some power. Like that. And then you got to plug this guy in. It's a little sketchy, so just be careful if you ever actually try to do something like this. So you'll want to put this guy in here like this. All right. So what's going to happen here is after I bind it with my transmitter, the transmitter sends out PWM signals kind of. So this guy interprets it as 1000 to 2000. So this guy here is sending anything from 1000 to 2000 depending where your throttle's at. So down here it's at 1000. If you move it there, it'd probably be about 1500, and this would be about 1900 to 2000. So what happens here is it sends it down here. So say if you're at 1500 or 0, so it's sending nothing. So the chip here is a SIL chip, and this is actually what controls the ESC. And the motor has 3 wires. So think of it, for every single motor, the yellow will always be A, the black will be B, and red, or the red one will be C. So it goes A, B, C. So the SIL chip here, its only real function is to be going around in circles. So it's going to be going A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. So if you move this up to 200, it's going to send the PWM here as a 200. That's going to interpret it. And now instead of going A, B, C, it's going to be going A, B, C, A, B, C. And I meant 2000, or I meant like 1200. So if you move up to 1300, it'd be going ABC, ABC, ABC. Move it up to 1500, ABC, ABC, ABC. Then you move it all the way to the maximum 2000, and this guy is going to be going ABC, ABC like that, like super, super fast. And it's going to be doing the same with the wires, controlling the motor, doing the rotation. So it's going to be going ABC. All right, so I'm just going to show you the ESC working with basic wires here. So I'm going to turn on the transmitter. And now if I move up the transmitter just a little bit, it'll increase the motors, making the cell chip ABCs go quicker and quicker. So all the way to its maximum. Right, so that's my very, very limited explanation of the ESCs. The reason why the motor was spinning as well is because I was messing around with some settings. Usually it doesn't spin until you actually move the throttle up a little bit. All right, to touch on the motor just a little bit again about the ABC thing. So we'll just say the cell chip is going clockwise with the ABC. So it's going ABC, ABC. The wires on the motor is ABC. So it's good to always take pictures of all your CX20s, all your motors and all the color codes just so you know how it goes again. But if you don't, it doesn't really matter if you get it backwards because all you have to do is swap the yellow and the red around. So it's going ABC, ABC like that. So if you switch the C and the A, so then it'd be going CBA. So it's still going ABC, ABC, but because you switch those two wires around, for the motor, it's now going CBA, CBA, CBA. And that's how you reverse motor direction on ESCs. Back to this mess here. You're not bound to this motor size here. So let's say if you want to put your cx20 into a really small quadcopter, like an FPV type style, you can change the motors out for little motors like this. And you can change the ESCs with little guys like this. And you can still connect these ones to the main board if you still want to use that main board. So just keep in mind you can replace it with that or these style motors or really anything. Now the APM, the brain of the unit, this guy here, I have so many videos on my channel about CX20 upgrade to whatever or switching it out. So you can switch it to this kind of APM here, or you can actually change it to even a little micro guy. So again, you can put your CX20 into an FPV. All in all the CX20 is 4 motors, 4 ESCs, a battery. That's all you really basically need, and the brain, of course. And that's what makes a quadcopter. So with that theory there, we're going to get rid of this stuff here. We'll keep this ESC down here like this, and I can show you some other things you can actually change. So for example, the GPS. If you're going with the micro style GPS, you can swap it out with a micro GPS. Just a little guy like this. So you can have this little guy here. This motor here, the ESC. Of course, you need four of these motors for these ESCs. This is just a GPS. You still need your little compass like that, and you have a little teeny APM, and then you need this guy here for your sound for a Pico. Let's say if you don't want to use a motherboard, you can use this and you can just use wires, and then you need a BEC, a 12 volt to 5 volt BEC. So this stuff here, of course, again, times 4, like you need 4 motors and 4 ESCs. That's all you really need to make a quadcopter. And then it's up to your imagination what you want to put it in. So this thing's really small, so this is actually pretty small too. So personally, I would stay with a bigger guy just so it can pick up a bit more. But if you're outside, a little guy like this can actually do. It comes with a little antenna as well. So the main board. So instead of, and the whole point of this video is to help somebody out, because I sent them one of these boards because I bought these about a year ago and just never used it. Because I was going to make a video about making a cx20 with like maximum room. So to get rid of this board here, and then you don't need to use this guy. You won't need to use this guy here. And the bonus too is you'll still be able to use your ESC. Let's get rid of this stuff here. You'll still be able to use your ESC lights. So to get rid of this board here and all that stuff, you can replace it with this. So in comparison here, that's the difference there. And this should give you the most room, and it's not as sketchy as using wire, but personally I've made a lot of quadcopters just using wire. But this guy here, the bonuses here is it's only like $6 or $7 or something like that, and it replaces this guy here, this guy here. It has the LEDs, and it has like the low voltage and everything like that, and it has the back. So, and yeah. So to show that with the APM as well, you can even mount this guy, because you won't have these pins here. So your shell would look more like this guy here. So you can actually glue your main board on top of your APM, and then you can actually pretty much fit this anywhere. So just imagine here, even just the size, especially if you use the compass here, and then even the little GPS. You wouldn't want the compass close, but I mean, it's a pretty small unit here. So I'm going to show you guys, the whole point of this video here is just to show you how to use this board here instead of this main board here. I could show you just using wire, but like I said a minute ago, I sent this guy to somebody, so I'm just going to make the video as well to show him how to use it. And yeah, so it's basically just going to be showing how to hook up the ESC wires to it, which is all pretty basic stuff here. So I'll get back into it. All right, so before you mount this or solder your board up, the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out the size of your quadcopter. It's handy as well if you're going to be putting in a different shell and you're keeping this ESC and this motor here to put the blade on, just so you know the blades aren't going to be hitting a frame or anything like that. Because the way I'm going to show you here is totally impractical, because they'd be too close together and the blades would definitely be hitting each other probably. And to explain a little bit, here's the QR350 frame I was talking about. So say if you want to use a frame like this, you place your motor into where it's supposed to be, put in your ESC, and then you're going to have to find the location for this board here. The cx20 main board, this guy here, fits actually pretty good in it. So you wouldn't really want to use that little board. But with all the regulations about size and stuff like that and size limits, it's handier going more micro, like with this and the micro GPS, the micro APM, and just lightening up your quad a lot. The lighter your quad is, the more airtime you're going to get. It's 100% related to that. So for this guy here, I would have to 3D print something or glue a piece of cardboard from this side to this side so I can place my board here. But the wires aren't going to be long enough to reach. So just make sure you find the same gauge wire here basically, and just attach and heat shrink, and just make sure you have enough wire to go to wherever your board is. This board doesn't have to be center either. It can be pretty much anywhere. But to simplify this video, I'm not going to be installing a quad, and I'm not going to be explaining the hookups for the receiver or the APM. The only goal here is to really show you the motherboard, switching out the motherboard or using wires. But I'm not really going to have to show you how to use wires. Just attach all your red wires together for all your ESCs, all the black wires for your ESCs, and attach it directly to the battery. Just make an end like this after on all your wires, and then just plug that directly into the battery. And that's all you have to do instead of using the main board. All right, main board. First thing you want to do here is, you might want to flux up these pads a little bit, but I'm just going to skip that. All we're going to do is pre-tin all your pads. So on this guy here, it's probably hard to see, you got your ESCs here. So you got ESC 1, 2, 3, 4, or whichever way you want to count it. It doesn't really matter what's what, because these are all just connected directly to the 12 volts. So this can be motor 1, this can be motor 1. It doesn't really matter, but it's good just to keep it the shortest possible length of wires you want. All right, so this would be motor 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how it gets connected on the cx20. All right, so I'm going to start tinning these wires. You also want to tin these little guys here. These little pads here are going to control your LEDs. So you have your negative and your positive for your LED. You also have your 12 volts for a gimbal or something or whatever is underneath your quad. And here's a beck as well for 5 volts. All right, so I'm all done tinning up the pads. They're a little difficult to pre-tin. You might actually have to take your solder pencil and put it on sideways like this and just go back and forth with it like this, trying to cover most of the trace. All right, so the first thing we want to get out of the way is adding the power. And that would be your black and red wire off the cx20. And also this red and black wire here is 12 volts. So we'll also be adding that to the pad right here that says 12 volts. Or you can actually still connect it directly to the battery as well. And I might do that. I probably will do that. So you might actually have to add some more solder because the solder they use is pretty good.
Hello, somebody has opened your floodgate. Hello, floodgate is closed.
Alright, so I'm going to add the power to the location where it says battery, negative and positive. So the black goes on a negative and the red goes on the positive. Here you might want to use some flux. All right, with that done, you can actually plug in your battery to see if it lights up. All right, with the power attached, you can now plug in the battery just to see if it lights up and stuff. Make sure there's nothing under the board that can short it out. Okay, so it's good. So we can continue on. So what I'll do here is I'll save the 12 volts for last. I'm not going to attach it to this. I'll probably attach it to the 12 pads at the end. So I'll just put this to the side for now. So the way we'll orient this board is with the power in the back. So this will be ESC2. And that's the one we'll try attaching now. So again, add some flux to it. Guess I can just get that out of the way now. Red wire here and the black one on the both sides here for the positive and the negative. Just don't worry about the LED one for now. Or actually, we can test that in a second as well. Probably be better if I put this in a clamp. So you want to make sure you have a really good connection there. Could be the tip of my soldering gun is just bad now. It's taking a while for this solder to heat up. Alright, so we have the ESC attached now, so you can actually test it out, sort of. So what we'll do with the LED wires, what you'll want to do is, for at least 3 of them, for motor 1, 2, and 4, you're going to want to add some length to this wire as well. You'll most likely have to add length to your positive and negative for your ESC. So add enough length to make it to the LED pad here that says positive, and that's where you're going to want to attach the white wire to. So it's going to be a little tight here. It's too bad they didn't use headers. It would have been kind of handy to add some. Alright, so that's the connection for it like this. So just make sure you get it onto the positive one up there. So that gets rid of number 2. So we'll jump on to number 3. It's the same process. Or sorry, number 4. So my number 4 has these wires here. I have a video on how I made custom firmware for these ESCs, so just ignore this green wire here. Alright, so also you might want to test, say if you're putting on the motor onto the ESC as well, you might actually want to test it out to see the rotation of which way the motor is turning, so you can swap these two around. I also just made a video on how you can change motor direction with your transmitter, so you have 2 options there. But if you take out your motors the same way and orient it the same way or whatever, it should be pretty much easy to do. Alright, I'm going to try changing tips on my soldering pencil here, because that little one just wasn't doing it. Okay, that's much better now. It's a lot quicker. Except it won't be good for the LED ones, I don't think. Oh, that's nice. Alright, so again, on the board here, you want to solder this white one to the positive pad. I'm going to try this once with this pencil. Okay, I think that's good. Just make sure it's not touching anything. Alright, so for now again, you can just put this to the side. Alright, so now we'll do number 1. So just make sure you keep a note of the positive and the negative side. So this guy here has a red one. I'm not sure if I added that myself or it actually came that way. It's been a long time. But this red guy here is for your LED, so don't confuse that with 12 volts. It's always the one on the board where it has a plus sign there and a negative. That's for your 12 volts. Kind of moved it around, so that'll be a cold joint. Right, so this red guy here would get hooked up to the positive there. Right, so just be careful when you're moving this board around. I'm not sure how good the pads and the traces are, so it might be easy to rip the wires off the traces for the LEDs. Right, so now we'll get number 3 out of the way. So this number 3 is the one we had marked at the beginning of the video with the white. So again, the black here and the red for the positive. Right, and then again, the white one goes to the LED pad, positive. Alright, so now for your board that used to be under your cx20 for the USB. That's if you're going to use it, because if you're putting this into another case, you can just plug the USB directly onto the side of the APM there or here. But I'll just show you anyways where you would attach these 2 wires. So the one with the red and black is your ground, and the one with the red is your positive. Right, so on the board right there is your 12 volt and your ground. You could technically hook this up right to the 2 batteries, but there's a pad for it, so you may as well do it if it gets on there. Get in there. Probably been smart to do the ground first. Because the wire will be in the way. Sneak underneath it. Okay, that's good. So again, you don't really need to add this, but if you're going to put this board into the cx20 for some kind of mod or whatever, it'd be good. Alright, so the wires you want to grab off this board now is the positive 5 volts. It's this guy here that used to get plugged into B on your receiver. So we'll unsolder those. You don't need the white wire here, so you can remove it from the harness if need be. Alright. So this guy now gets connected to this board on the back, and that's the 5 volts right here. So your positive is on the top and the negative is on the bottom. So red on top, black on bottom. We'll add a little bit of flux. Alright, so we're pretty much done swapping over this board here to this little guy. Things I forgot to mention, that this board actually has quite a few options. if I can twist this around. So it has a back, it has an LED controller, it has the lost plane flight, and a low voltage alarm. So if you extend these wires out, you can actually get quite distance away from the power board there. So pretty sure the blades won't hit each other if you make your own frame or whatever. Alright, so we're pretty much done this video. I'm just going to show you the LEDs working. I'm not going to get all the motors spinning because once you start spinning these motors, they'll start twisting and I can't hold down all 4 of them at once. So I'm just going to show you again connecting it directly to the receiver. So here's the receiver here. Okay, so we'll want to connect this guy to T on the receiver. The wire is pretty green there. Could be why I'm having issues with it. Okay. And then your back wire, the one we added for the 5 volts, the black and the red, this one still gets plugged into your B spot on the receiver. And this will power up the receiver when you plug in the battery. So this guy gets plugged in. Oops. Yeah, gets plugged in this way. So the red in the middle rail and the black on the bottom for ground. So that's good now. And it connects the same way as you used to before. So from this guy here, from your A, that wire is going to power your APM just like it did before. This guy here as well, before I forget, this still gets hooked up to the APM for getting your 5 volts for underneath. So this guy with the 2, doesn't really matter which order, you just might have to move your gimbals around. So this guy here would get plugged into number 3 with the white, whoops, almost screwed that up, with the white at the top. And then the one here gets plugged into number 2. So I can get that in there, and white at the top again. Alright, I had to edit my video big time because I kind of screwed up. I showed you how to solder this guy onto your ESC 3-wire, the one we had put whiteout on. You don't need this wire for this board here for the LEDs. So just cut the wire and add some heat shrink to it and just be done with it. I originally thought you had to connect this wire here to the single wire here to enable the LEDs, but that's tripping up the rangefinder. So you can't do that. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys what this button does and how to change the 3 modes for your voltage detecting and to change your LEDs. And then I'll show you how to enable this for the LEDs if you want to use it on your thing like this, which I think is kind of pointless because the cx20 can't do the range finding thing option on this because you need a toggle switch, and we're currently using both toggle switches for our flight modes. So if you have another transmitter, then you can use the wire and have rangefinder option with it. So I'm going to show you this button. So I'm going to plug it in. Alright, so to change from the 3 modes for your low voltage, right now it's currently set to 3.4 and you have 3 options. So hold the button down for 3 seconds. It'll beep and the light will flash. Now quickly just keep tapping the button to cycle through all of them, and then one is for off. If you set it to off, it doesn't shut the motors off or nothing, it just shuts the speaker from beeping on low voltage. So I'm going to set mine to the last one, then leave it alone for a couple seconds and it should beep. There you go, it's set. Alright, for the LEDs now, you can see they're all working. I can turn off this light. I guess you can see the red underneath the 2 in the front. Right, so to change that, just tap this button. And now they're blinking slow. If you want to blink it faster, that's the other one. Or you can have it off, I believe, so there's no light at all. And you can just have it on solid. So every time you plug in the battery, they'll just be on solid. So now to change these settings as well for that and for the LEDs, make sure nothing's plugged into this wire here. So say you want the option to turn your lights on and off. Or if you have another transmitter that can actually has an extra toggle switch, then I'll show you how you can do it with this. So on the cx20 under -2 or 2 and port 3, channel 2 and 3 or whatever it is, unplug number 2. You can go in 2 or 3. And then the kit came with a wire like this, but I would suggest just moving to red and black and just use just the white. But I have a bunch of these guys here, so I'm just going to use this. So plug it into the single wire here like that, and then you can plug this into 2 like that. So this is kind of pointless, like I said, on this transmitter, but I'll show it anyways. So plug in this. So you notice the lights aren't on yet, so I'll turn on my transmitter. So now if you want to turn the lights on, you can just move this guy here about halfway, and that turns on the light. So technically, you're supposed to be able to go back and forth, and it should trigger the lost finder, but it's just, I'm not exactly sure where 1300 is on this. I guess it'd be more than halfway. You're supposed to go like that to trigger it. Oh, there you go. Did something. Okay, so I changed the mode. Apparently, now I'm probably going to be stuck with that one. That sucks. Okay, maybe one of you smart guys can fight with it longer than I am. I just kind of find it pointless. So now somehow I set it to blinking. So now if I set this to 0 and then turn it all the way up, it's just going to blink now. So if you want it, if you do screw it up, then you'll have to remove this single wire and tap that button, because I'm not exactly sure where it is. Well, it says 1000 to 1300, so it'd be there to there, I believe. Nope. I found something there. Try it again. Sorry for wasting your time here. I'm just curious about this. Oh, there you go. So red up in the middle. So it's pointing. It's hard to show. So both the first tick there and the other tick there, I believe, if you go there. Oh, nope. Oh, I thought I figured it out. There you go. So I guess you got to do it pretty quick. There you go. Don't know how to enable the rangefinder, but again, maybe you smart guys can. Okay, that's cool. Well, not cool, but okay. So, anyways, that's how you do it. Sorry for babbling on. All right. So if you have issues with hooking up the wires back to the original APM as well, I have a video of the cx20 to the APM 2.6. I just didn't want to make this video go any more, because usually they get up to about an hour in length. So I kind of wanted to make this one short, and basically it was just showing you how to swap out the main board. So again, hopefully you guys can use this in a project. And that's it, guys. Like and subscribe, please. And that's it. If you have any problems, just hit me up in the comments. Thanks.